Hey, what is up everybody? Welcome back to another video. My name is Dylan, and in today's video we're going to go over the top 10 mistakes beginner photographers make when starting out and how to avoid all of them. So let's get right into it. Starting things off with number one of the most important ones on the list is unwanted objects in your frame and or bad angles. You can always move around and get a different angle of your subject, or if it's a person, you can move the subject. Although that's not always the case where you just have a person as your subject where they can move, they can do a different pose, they can go around the tree, they can go around the street lamp. If it's not possible and what you're photographing is set there in stone and you are not going to be able to move it by any means at all, move yourself around it and get that better angle. And if there's an unwanted subject in the frame, like say, this water bottle, I'm gonna put that right there. This isn't adding to my frame at all. There's no point of this being here right now. So, get rid of it. The other thing I see a lot of beginner photographers make a mistake on is taking a photo, standing still, just standing up, and they're not getting down on a knee, trying to get that low angle. Maybe if it's a portrait of a person, you wanna make them look powerful, you wanna make them look mean and like a big person or larger than life kind of a photo. They don't get down on that one knee and get that low angle, making that person seem very big and powerful. If you're into photography and you really want to get those really cool shots, you can't be afraid to get down on the knee and take the photo there, or lay yourself right onto the ground and get the photo from laying on your stomach or your back. Maybe you're shooting upwards and you're laying on your back, and maybe you're shooting straight up at a tree or any kind of thing like that, or a building in the city. And the other thing is, don't be afraid to, get yourself a drone, take to the skies. And yes, bad things happen, but you can always get another one. Number 2 on the list is get a tripod. If you have one, bring it with you. Wherever you go, bring that tripod with you. You never know what you're gonna get. You never know what you're gonna need it for. There's been times where I haven't had a tripod, or I haven't gotten myself a tripod, or I just didn't bring it because I thought I wasn't gonna need it. I missed out on some of what could have been the best photos of my career, which is devastating, to be honest. You never know what you're gonna get, and sometimes you need that super steady tripod as that helping hand, and it can produce some of the most amazing photos. Take long exposure, for example. This photo here, I took this at a creek out by my grandparents' place. There is not a chance that I would have gotten this without my tripod. I can't just sit my camera on the ground because there was snow all around, and there's no way my hands are gonna be perfectly still for the 4-second shutter I had on. There's just no way. If you don't have a tripod, seriously consider getting one, and if you have one, do not ever make the mistake of not bringing it with you everywhere you go to take photos. It will be a lifesaver one day, I promise you. Number 3 on the list is take the time and figure out your settings of your camera. Shooting manual allows you to control 100% of what your camera is capturing. Shooting on auto is cool and all, and it's fun, and it allows you to get photos, but shooting manual allows you to get amazing photos. You can do almost anything. If you can master your camera settings, which is difficult, I understand. It took me a 1.5 years before I truly knew, just by looking at a photo, this was 200 shutter and my aperture was 3.5 and my ISO was at 800. It took me a 1.5 years before I knew how to do that. And now that I do, it makes my photography life much easier. But yes, it is a learning curve. And it is gonna take time, but take that time. And the other thing with this is, don't trust your LCD screen. You need to know those settings, especially if you're shooting in manual. If you go out to a beautiful location, sunset, golden hour, you have your subject standing out there on the ridge overlooking a beautiful lake. Just picture that. You take the photo, it looks fantastic on your screen on the camera, but you get home, you load it into Photoshop or Lightroom or any kind of other editing software, it's grainy. It looks terrible. Your shutter speed was at 1/500, your aperture was at 8, but your ISO was cranked to 8,000. Thus, the ISO was the one bringing up the light, and everything else was making it darker. But with that ISO at 8,000, you have so much green in the photo, it's completely ruined. Had you have taken the time and set your shutter down to 100, your aperture maybe close to 3.5 or 4, and your ISO at 100 or 200 maybe, depending on the situation, there's a little bit of leeway there, the photo would have came out great. The photo would have came out beautifully, and it would have looked the exact same on the LCD screen. It is super hard to tell if you're not looking at your settings and knowing what each single one is doing. Figure out your settings. Number 4, get closer. If you're super far away from your subject and you don't want to be, so you just zoom in, don't be lazy. Walk. Move yourself closer to the subject. If you want that close-up, get closer. If you're photographing a flower, don't just zoom in on it. Get right up into that flower and photograph it. It should be that far away, depending on what kind of a lens you're having. I mean, you know, there's a bit of a range, but if you're shooting with a macro lens, you're gonna wanna get right in there. Get right close to it, as close as you possibly can, and don't ever just rely on your zoom if you don't have to. There are cases where if you see a bunny run across your yard and he's just sitting there, he's all majestic and peaceful, and you wanna get a photo of it. Those are cases where, using common sense, you know if you get within 20 feet of that bunny, he's gone. He's taken off. There's no way you're gonna get that photo. So then, use your zoom. At that point, that's okay. But if you're able to get closer to your subject, get closer. The other exception to this is using a telephoto lens, but if you're a beginner, you may not have a telephoto lens and you may not be trying to purposely have that super wide background with the subject right there. Number 5, use the rule of thirds. These lines right here, there should be one around here, here, and then like 2 somewhere here. Don't always center your subject. You don't need to. There are often times where it is much better to place your subject just to this side of the screen with the rest of the background showing over here, or to this side, or a good example is horizons and landscape photography. Typically, you want the horizon or the ocean edge or the peaks of the mountains to line up with one of these 2 lines. Here's a couple examples of a horizon at the lower third, and here's one with it at the higher third. Number 6, create depth. This can also be known as shooting through. Here's one good example of a tree in the foreground and a landscape in the background, where the tree is shown clearly as the foreground in focus and the background out of focus, and it creates that depth. But let's reverse it. Here's another tree in the foreground and the background in focus. It pulls you into the image because you're looking past the tree, which is out of focus, and into the landscape, which is in focus. That's that depth creation that really, really helps the viewer feel as if they were right there in that moment in that photo. Number 7 is look for leading lines. Leading lines can be just about anywhere. And you might be asking, why are leading lines important? What even are leading lines? Here's a couple examples. So these photos that I took have the lines of the road that were painted there leading up to my subject. Now, typically the goal of using leading lines is to pull the viewer's eye from the lines right into the subject to really just make them focus on exactly what the subject was and what was photographed. Leading lines can be really almost anywhere. It can be the lines of the road, like you saw. It can be a tree line, a fence line. It can be the road itself if you're using a drone or you're shooting really far out. Just take the time. Look for these leading lines because they can truly make your photos much better. Next on the list at number 8, we have capture sharp, straight images. Beginner photographers, they pull out the camera, they go in for the photo, take the photo, and then they don't look at it, they don't double check it, They think it's good. And that's a mistake we've all made. I've made it. I made that especially when starting out tons of times. But I got into the habit of double checking almost every photo I take. My method is this, especially when shooting portrait, because it can be much harder to keep it horizontal. I'll take around 5 to 10 at a time, and I'll go in and I'll check each photo and I'll scroll through all of them just quickly, just a quick glance, just to make sure that they're clear and horizontal. I usually end up deleting 1 or 2, but I've also broken that habit because it is a bad habit. You shouldn't delete anything until you've seen it on your big screen, on your laptop, on your computer, because like I said, you can't always trust the screen on the back. Number 9 on our list is easily the most important rule of photography and filmmaking. Lighting is everything. Don't go shoot in broad daylight. I've made this mistake. Tons of others have made this mistake. I'm sure almost every photographer has made this mistake. Sometimes it's unavoidable and that's the only chance you're gonna get, and that's okay. That is okay. Sometimes it has to be done, and if so, don't worry about it. Don't sweat yourself about it. It sucks, yes, especially once you get even more into photography and you learn that lighting truly is everything. It's kind of hard to let go that, I wish my flight was a little bit later so I could catch a sunset photo in Hawaii before I go home. Sometimes that happens, and it hurts. It truly hurts. But anytime it's at all possible to shoot that location or shoot this subject or take this person out shooting photos, shoot at golden hour, whether that's the first hour of sunlight or the last hour of sunlight. Golden hour gives your photos and your videos that extra just punch and pow, just in your face, this is amazing look. So, if it's possible, shoot at golden hour, first and last hour of sunlight, sometimes last hour and a half of sunlight. The other option is if you are shooting a person, especially, shady and cloudy conditions are perfect for portrait photography. You're gonna get good shadows and an all-round good image of your subject. Number 10, break them. Don't always follow the rules. There's no need. You can break almost every single rule on this list. Being a photographer means you are a creative thinker. You have a creative mind. Sometimes you think outside the box. Maybe this photo, even though it doesn't follow any of the rules, shoot it anyway. Just break all the rules. Shoot that photo that you think might just turn out like crap. Just take it. You never know what you're gonna get. It might be a career-changing photo because you found a whole new rule in photography. You don't know. You never know. Break the rules. There's no need to always follow them. A lot of photographers shy away from breaking the rules because they're too comfortable inside the rules. You guys have to know. It is so much better to find something that you think is gonna look good and shoot it at all the different angles you can, and maybe you can get some good lighting in there. Remember, that's important. But it is so much better to shoot and delete later as opposed to not shoot at all and never know what you may have had. Like I said, any photo in your entire photography career, if you're taking this super seriously, it truly could be a career-changing photo. You just never know. But the best way of getting even close to knowing is to shoot it anyway. Shoot it, maybe delete it, but don't ever just not take the photo and think, whatever, probably won't look good anyway. No, shoot the photo. All right, guys, that is it for our top 10 mistakes photographers make when starting out as beginners and how to fix them. So I'd like to take the time to say thank you for watching the video, and a big thanks to our sponsor, Media Studio 15, an all-in-one e-learning platform where you can take guitar lessons, dance lessons, you can learn MMA and self-defense, and coming soon they'll have building website classes on Wix and WordPress. So big shout out to them. Thank you so much. You can check out their link in the description and subscribe if you have not already. I'll see you in the next video. Break the rules. Okay? Good video.